The actual sales part of it, how I eventually was able to sell all my work, was that I was not over. Yeah, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with my work, I make paintings like this and paintings like this. And today I'm speaking with Danielle Kainers, and she makes paintings like that and also like that. And today we are talking about some things that I think would be relevant. Of course, we want people to watch this video. I don't want to create clickbait. I never have, and I don't think YouTube needs any more of that. So I wanted to tell the truth, and that's why I was able to use the thumbnail title that I chose, which is about selling all of my work, because I was trying to deceive all of you and say, watch this video. Oh, wow, that guy sold all of his work. But it's actually true. So we'll talk about that, get into all of the history of my career and just cover as much of that as possible. I guess this would be like kind of a visual podcast because we'll have images and things. I never wanted to do an art podcast actually because I'm super self-conscious about being original and there's already a lot of art podcasts out there. Yeah, so let's get started. I guess I'll introduce Danielle now that I've kind of introduced myself a little bit. Again, if you're totally new to my channel, then I'm just one of 65 billion artists that you've seen on Instagram with artist in their title. And so it's like, who's this guy, right? But yeah, Danielle, so you are from Winnipeg.
Yes.
Canada.
Manitoba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are currently recording at my home studio on Vancouver Island in Canada, which I think is I'm a little biased here because I live here now, but I think it's the greatest place in Canada to be.
I think it is too.
To escape the winter. And, I grew up in Northern Alberta, so I had to go somewhere where the climate matched the clothing that I wanted to wear. And I've heard there was a quote, I think somebody said that at one point, some musician or something. It's like, I had to move where the climate matched my clothes. So yeah, that worked out for me as the kid in high school that was surrounded by like farm kids, and I actually lived on a farm, so I had I could have the cred to be a farm kid, but I had long hair and like couch pattern pants. What does that mean? Couch pattern? They're like plaid pants. And it was playing rock music, and most of the other kids in my high school were like dressed as like a cowboy type character or something like that. The jocks and the preps, as they called them. Anyways, that's totally irrelevant, and they'll probably erase that. So let's talk about it. Let's get into something that ties into the title of this video, which is that I sold 100% of my artwork. Danielle has done really well with prints, which is a really cool thing, so we can mesh our knowledge together and share information. And we thought, like, well, why not share it with other people as well, and make 42 cents on YouTube ad revenue. It will pay for 1/27th of our lattes. Yeah, so maybe let's actually start with you, just because I think that's what I feel like doing right now.
Totally. Should we start at the start?
Yeah, a little bit, like a brief overview of your art history, and then maybe we'll get more into details after.
Totally. Yeah, so it's been something, many people, art has been with them since childhood, and I am one of those people.
Same.
So it was, very recognized at an early age that I would just absolutely gobble up pencils, papers, all of it. And
so you didn't just decide at like in your early 20s that like, I think I'm going to try art after like accounting and downhill ski instructor and
a little bit of that too.
Oh, okay.
Actually. So the art was with me the whole time, and other people recognized it, and other people were actually pressuring me to be an artist.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what that was. I didn't have a role model. I didn't have any sort of template.
Because you grew up in Winnipeg?
Or is your family artistic? No.
Okay, same.
I grew up
so that's one way that we totally relate, because I don't have any arts. Like nobody could show me the way.
No. Engineers and agriculture.
Okay.
That's what I grew up around.
That's probably part of this like role theory that I have, because I'm always trying to be like a really brilliant person that has all these unique original ideas, which is probably not true. But like the idea that there's more variation within groups than there is across groups sometimes. So it's like if you like, I think part of the reason that I became motivated to do art was because it wasn't around me. So it was like this natural transgressor who's like got to do the opposite of what everyone else is doing, or in a way, you know, like the what's the word again for that? Edit this out, but
The black sheep? We're
Black
not talking
sheep?
about the black sheep?
it's a totally common phrase. Maverick? No, it's the it's so super common. Contradictory, like contrarian.
Contrarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always felt like I really do still feel like that. Like I'm just, anytime something is in style and there's a bunch of people doing something, I want to do the opposite. It just always naturally pulls me that way. So
Yeah.
you felt like you were, maybe that was part of the motivation for you, maybe?
I think I just genuinely loved it, but it was, not, it didn't reflect anything in my environment. There was not even art in like exposed to me.
So you needed to make your environment.
Yeah, I wasn't exposed to a classical painting until probably my teens.
Yeah.
I only saw anime, comic books, and video games, but there was something in that lit something up in me. I think these fantastical worlds just, always lit something up, and nature lit me up too, which is an important piece of my inspiration in my work.
Yeah.
But I was like winning kid art contests and things like that early on. And I just didn't know what to do with it and if it would actually even be a viable path. So I did eventually try all of the different things, as you're saying. I went into modeling and acting and health coaching and all of these fields, which I think is also valuable to diverge before you then button up and really focus in on one thing that you're so passionate about. I think that really served me well. So, and we can go into that, all the little fields that have served us, right, into building the path that we then chose. But essentially I felt pressured into being an artist, and they did not know what they were imposing on me and what that path would demand, right? Everyone's just saw me paint and they're like, you should be an artist. So
it's the work itself. Then you eventually spent a lot of time painting.
Yep.
And did festivals.
Yes. That built, to back it up, I had an entrepreneurial mind as a kid. And so lemonade stands, for example, was something I was completely into, and just finding ways of selling. And then early on, I think I had mentioned it to you briefly, I was creating books, illustrated books in grade 5. And so I sold my first illustrated books at that age, just little staples, pamphlets, and selling that. And then by age 15, I exhibited at comic conventions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started selling
Yeah.
the books, or like were they like reproductions of things, or
The books were no longer part of my oeuvre.
okay.
The comic convention was more these fantastical illustrations that I was creating. So I had a little bit of a cohesive world by then. People often said I should be a children's book illustrator at that time because of these worlds. But Comic-Con was really great because it was the first time having strangers exposed to my work that'll either just walk on by or maybe show some interest, ask some questions, and just getting used to speaking about the art.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So for anyone listening, if they want to meet a lot of people at once, you would probably agree with me that fairs are
100%.
a really good way to do that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to post your work online. And I think early on in those years, yes, I was posting on DeviantArt, that old school art platform.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between it just being posted online and you getting the visceral reactions in front of you and the feedback.
Big time.
And you can attest to that as well, and just how it can help you develop. And also speaking about your art is so valuable.
Big time.
Yeah.
So to dive deeper into moving forward to closer to now, when you're able to sell a lot of prints, what would you say is the number one thing you could tell people, your main technique for being able to sell prints? like someone that hasn't been able to sell any yet, that thinks maybe they could.
It's complex, right? We spoke quite extensively that subject matter is the biggest thing. And I really believe that's what drives the sale ultimately, is what you're choosing to depict, and is someone excited enough to pick that up. And then of course developing the strength of the work. So there's the subject matter, but then you also need the technique. So it's balancing. And then business itself is something I still feel I'm developing in quite a bit, because I've sacrificed focusing on business in order to develop the craft quite a bit at this point.
Which is tricky.
Yep.
Always.
But definitely what has helped is online. I mean, just the more I post, the more I see the art sells. That's definitely inherent. And at times where I haven't been posting as much, such as now, I'm selling less, releasing more often. And that is part of what's hard for me, is because I put so much into each piece. But the more you release work, it actually builds enthusiasm for the other work too. So that's what I'm working on right now as well. And having different tiers of pricing. There was a point in time where I was doing just laser prints, and this was better for the Comic-Con market. And it was being mentioned to me like, oh, if you pay 20 times the amount per print, it's probably worth it, because then you can still charge a higher ticket price and the people really appreciate it and keep it longer term. It becomes, a piece that they can actually cherish and invest in. And that really helped me grow, is just jumping from a $20 print to a $100, $200 print.
Yeah. Okay. But do you usually have those options? So if somebody wants to spend a very small amount, or they want to buy something big and elaborate, then they have those options?
Now I want to build on that more. On my website currently, it's just the higher ticket. But when I go in person, I sell these mini prints and portfolio size prints, and they go really well. Like there's this concept of price framing, right? If you have the high ticket item, everything else seems a lot more affordable and accessible. And I think it is important to have that, like the things that people don't have to think twice about. If they love the work and they want a piece, they shouldn't have to clear the wall space, empty the wallet, frame it, if that's not comfortable to them. Yeah. So having the options has really helped. I can notice that people are just excited and they want to support. So meeting people at all spaces. Yeah.
And a lot of the people that you've met in person, they contact you again, and you keep in touch sometimes. And that's honestly been the number one thing for me, is that even though I'm online and I've been on Instagram for a little while, I have like a half decent following, especially it's way smaller than some like big celebrity artists out there. But, I've got a bit of an online presence, and still to this day, it's the people that I've met in person that are in contact with me and, buying larger paintings and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to pivot into some of your early days?
Yeah. So like going way back, like if I was to try to do a relatively brief, like step by step of how I got to the point in my career now where I've sold all my work, I would just quickly say in the beginning, like every other kid, started to draw, but I took it really seriously. And that was just my personality style. I think my mother even had to say at one time when I was like 7 or 8 years old, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, because I'd be critiquing my drawing and be like, oh, it's not like this Da Vinci sketch that I'm copying or something. Like, and my sister was 10 years older than me. She was in nursing school. And so I remember some like anatomy books that she had, and I would draw from those at a very young age, and was always just like feeling like, I see what the greatest example is out there. So if that exists, why can't I do it? And I guess maybe that came from, relatively supportive parents and just being in an environment where nobody was quashing your dreams. And so I don't know where that part of it comes from. I've always been pretty confident about the creative process and feeling like ideas are infinite and they're just like a dime a dozen, and they're just like, this like visions spewing out all over the place all the time. And the number one kind of curse to that is that life is not long enough to possibly actually bring those visions into reality and turn them into detailed, time-consuming paintings. But other than that, it's a great problem to have. So just drawing all the time as a kid, played music for a while because I think at one point when I was like 12 or 13, I kind of got the point. Like I tried to copy a pretty detailed, like high value sort of classical drawing. And I remember thinking at one point when I really started to understand value, it just almost felt like it was just like the most obvious thing in the world. Not to be boastful, but I just have to be honest. Like it felt like, oh yeah, you just put the really darks where the really darks are in your reference copy. And then you put the lights where the really lights are and fill in the gaps in between. And things kind of work out. So I kind of got bored with that because at that point I had no life experience and didn't really have, anything to say or any strong feelings about what I would do with my own body of work. So I then picked up music because it really felt more intriguing. So I spent more than a decade really pursuing music and practicing guitar constantly, writing songs. As soon as I knew like 3 chords on the guitar, the first thing I did was start writing songs. Like that was the number one reason to do it. And from that point, like played music into my mid-20s. And then there was a pivot there eventually when I realized that my personality type was actually much better suited to a solo art career because I was a bit of a bit, not a jerk, but like a bit of a perfectionist in terms of like working with other people. And sometimes like, if one person in the group is like completely obliterated with alcohol before the show and that affects everyone else's performance, whether you want it to or not, it's like, yeah, I spend, 20 hours this week practicing on my own time. And then that doesn't matter because the song is 10 beats per minute too slow and stuff like that, So eventually like I got back into drawing a lot more, which I always did anyways. But at that point there was just something that pulled me back into it. And then I saw Peter Bruegel. At one point, I think I was like 25 or 26 years old, and I was like, where has this been all my life? Like, why didn't anybody shove this in front of my face when I was younger? Yeah. And I think that's just part of growing up in like a blue collar environment. Like, it's not a necessary part of your education. So I didn't see a lot of that kind of stuff when I was younger. And then I was living in Calgary at the time, and I went to a secondhand bookstore, and I found a Peter Bruegel book. It's like in my shelf now somewhere. And that just opened up worlds to me. I just kind of felt like going back to the source instead of being mainly influenced by a contemporary or living artist. I was looking back at the source, which a lot of other people were probably influenced by and then did their own thing with. So like going to the root element and then saying, well, how can I expand off of this and do my own thing? And after more than a decade of pursuing music like wholeheartedly, I felt like I had life experience that finally really drove me into some feelings. Like I got strong feelings about certain things. Now I got to get them out there. So when I started in my first real painting, I think I put like 500 or 700 hours, like 500 or 700 hours into the first painting that's on the very bottom of my website. So if you like scroll down all the way to the bottom, it's like these guys with their earmuffs on, and there's 3 guys playing music, and there's like this horn wrapped around a tree. Put a ton of time into that painting, and at that point I didn't know what I was doing with business. I just knew that I needed to paint, and I had all these ideas and I needed to get them out there. So from the beginning it was just like learn by doing. And I kind of had this idea from doing music. I built thicker skin. I kind of had this like self-consciousness about originality was always on my mind. So I kind of knew from looking online and seeing art shows in person sometimes that you've got to have a thing and it's got to be cohesive in some way. So I already knew that beforehand. As like, I'm not going to really put all my time into this art thing until I feel like I've got a unified vision that I can step forward with. And it's also got to be something that I won't get bored with. Like if I'm doing just one particular type of thing all the time, I wouldn't be interested in doing that. So I wanted to go into the deepest part of this world where I would have like figures, multi-narrative scenes, like multi-figured narrative scenes where there's like landscapes in the background, there's inanimate objects that are like still life things. So that's what interested me. And I did that on my own. And I realized later that if I had gone to an atelier, they probably would have been like, no, you can't do that yet. You have to spend like a year drawing monochrome and then spend another year painting in monochrome and things like that. And I just went right for it. I was like, no, I'm just going right into Peter Bruegel and just taking one of his paintings and using that as an influence. So I was very serious about that right away. So I started when I was like living in interior BC, like close to a town called Lumbee, which is close to a larger town called Vernon, which is like the Okanagan area, like the North Okanagan area. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I was playing music for a living at the time, which is not something I would recommend because like, choosing the least likely ways to make a living is probably not the easiest way to go about it. But I was doing music gigs, playing and singing acoustic guitar. And so I was really happy to just get by, to be honest. And that's what I was doing. I was just getting by. And I put my body of work together. I moved to Victoria. I lived in Oak Bay in the city of Victoria on Vancouver Island, Canada, and put together a body of work where I was painting like 40 or 50 hours a week and also playing music gigs. So every day my routine was like practice guitar for an hour, maybe two, learn a new song for the gig that coming weekend, and then spend the rest of the time painting. To the point where I gave myself like almost like tendonitis. And one of my gigs, I was playing bar chords on a song, and I was like, and it's the first time I ever had to use like Advil or Tylenol during a gig to get through playing, because I was like spending all my time with my left hand painting with tiny brushes. I did not yet have the foam grip expanders. So painting with tiny brushes all week long and then playing music. So my left hand is just taxed completely. So I learned a good lesson there about like physical health and, doing stretching and things like jumping jacks on a regular basis. And so from that point, I was like, okay, I'm putting together a body of work. I'm going to get a whole body of work together and then do a solo show. And my first actual outdoor show was called the Moss Street Paint-In, and that's in Victoria, the city of Victoria, run by the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria, AGGV. And it's just an open public thing. I think every city has at least one of these events every summer, where it's a low barrier to entry. You just have to have a somewhat consistent body of work put together, and then you can pay like $300 or $400. I didn't even have like a tent or anything to protect my work, and I had no idea what people would think. And I did that fair for I think 3 years in a row, and then one of the directors from the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria wanted me to participate in a show in the gallery. And from there, I started to get the experience with actually selling work and starting with that. And I started with pretty healthy prices and got the confidence from there. And my partner, Ingrid, who's a theater performer, we were both like, well, we got to move to the biggest city in the country. So we both moved to Toronto in 2012. So my official entry into being a full-time artist was November of 2011 is when I got paid from the gallery for this first major sale that I made. And again, was just happy to, have enough money to survive for a few months and take it on the road. And so I did an art fair in Vancouver on the way, met one really important collector. It doesn't take a ton. Went to I did actually a kind of a more casual kind of art fair in Calgary. Don't think I met anyone that I remember in terms of collectors at that. And then went all the way to Toronto and did the outdoor art exhibit in Toronto. That was the summer of 2012, and did really well in that. And from there really started to learn about the difficulties of doing this kind of work for a living. The number one problem wasn't for me sales, it was making more work quickly. That was the trickiest part. So even though other artists would probably see me working and think like, wow, that guy is like in a monk-like existence, just like painting all the time. What actually happens is it's actually really fast. There's just so much to it that you have to treat like one small part of a painting that might be the size of a postcard as if it's like a 3-foot wide painting, or put that much emphasis and detail in it. So I'm actually working quite deliberately in a very active way, quickly trying to get everything done, creating the reference images, all that stuff. I could go on and on about all of that. But the actual sales part of it, how I eventually was able to sell all my work, was that I was not overproducing. So I was putting a lot of time and effort into creating the best thing that I possibly could. And so that automatically, my mindset was counter to my surroundings. Toronto in 2012 was basically like, it's more like kind of postmodern influenced, just like whatever was popular in New York like 3 years previous is what was currently popular in Toronto. And it's like, that's a jab at the Canadian art scene a little bit maybe, but please don't take offense. I love a lot of artists that I've met in Toronto and I still keep in touch with, but the kind of stuff that I'm doing was just not in style in Toronto. And some of the other artists that I met in Toronto, a couple in particular, I'll give a shout out to Troy Brooks, a fantastic artist. He's selling a lot of his work internationally and not in that. I'm sure he does sell some in Toronto, but selling a lot around the world because it's a bit more of a niche thing, right? So I knew always that I've got to try to be global and find these people that can afford very time-consuming work that's a little bit weird from all these different pockets throughout the planet.
3 minutes.
Sorry?
3 minutes before I have to restart this again.
Okay, so so I started selling work in Toronto. I met the right person. It doesn't take a lot again. He ended up buying probably 8 or 9 paintings. And if he's watching this video, I would just thank him so much for seeing what I was doing and really believing in it. And I was totally independent at the time. And it got very exciting when I finally did sell. It was very stressful before that. But when I finally did meet a couple of people that were like, hey, yeah, I want to buy that. Everything just started to click, and I still had the problem of trying to produce more work quickly. That was the main thing always. But I started to amass an email list where I would do fairs and meet people in person. And I think it's honestly just everything that goes into the work that did all of the sales for me. I didn't have to try to be a salesperson and convince anybody that this is something special. It's just if you like it, you like it. I'll talk to you for as long as you want about the actual work itself. That was my sales pitch, so to speak. So I've never really felt like I've had to try to sell work. And that may be, a little bit boastful, but it's true. It's absolutely true. I put so much effort into the work itself that when I put it out there to this point, I feel like it's going to sell because I spent the time meeting those people. And also, at one point, I guess around 2020, I started to get more demand. And so I started doing the pre-deposits. So I would take a deposit for the work, but it was an open commission, so to speak. So the only thing that a person knew about it was the size. And I get to choose the subject matter, which is a beautiful place to be. I feel very grateful for that. And that came about because people finally saw enough of my work online. So once I started to have enough different work online, people could then see quite a selection, which I couldn't do at first. If I only had 7 or 8 paintings on my website, people can't see quite enough examples. So they could see all that. They'd be like, oh, I want one of your paintings. I kind of like all of them. So whatever you do, I trust I'll like it. So that's how I eventually got into being able to take pre-deposited commissions and sell every painting that I had made to that point, plus the ones that I haven't made yet, which I still have a list currently of people that I'm making these open commissions for, where I determine the subject matter and then eventually they get the painting. So one thing I wanted to turn back to you to talk about is the subject matter and how I'm sure you can also relate to the feeling of not having to do a sales pitch or something special in order to get people to buy tons of your prints. Is how do you feel that connects to the whole thing for you? Painting what you know, believing in it.
100%. I think a lot of what I've stumbled on as the special formula for my genre of work is that I've diverged quite a few times in my life. I poured myself to get 2 certifications in herbalism. I have my interest in breathwork, and I've been a facilitator of breathwork for over 5 years. I have a background in health coaching and a lot of other self-studies. So I'm into the esoterics and the spiritual fields. And all of that, I really believe everybody has a different path to carve, but that has been such a special piece of what's come together in my career in art now. I believe that the more dots you can connect, all the dots that we can connect that are unique to us, that make us this unique constellation, the more of those dots we can hit, the more it creates this innate value of what you bring forth. So I feel that applies to anybody, no matter what the disparate interests are, how they can bring them together. So what that's created for my work, for example, one of the earlier ones that took off and still does well for me these days is myco-wisdom. So that's a panorama
to like the fungi and
mycology. So the field of fungi and the study of mushrooms. And it is this panoramic piece. I poured into the study of mycology for 4 years and wanted to bring it into one piece. And then you and I share this in common, is just taking things to the next level and just being relentless with wanting to create something really special and all the care poured in. So it comes with a companion book.
Okay.
So that people can learn about mushrooms and what makes them so incredible and just the fascination. So you can actually follow along the painting to learn about mycology.
So it's like in your work, you're also saying, like, I don't just want to paint something because it looks beautiful or the way the light reflects off of it is beautiful, but I also want to impart some sort of educational experience.
Yes. And not every piece is that, but that one certainly works well because it has that value. And I debuted that one at Telluride Mushroom Festival.
Oh, where's that?
In Colorado.
Oh.
And it's one of the largest mushroom festivals in the world. And that actually really jump-started a portion of my career, and I became friends with most of the prominent mycologists. And it's this field that's so near and dear, and that's the key. It's authentic. Nowadays a lot of people paint mushrooms just because it's the cool thing, but I don't think you can actually falsify the deep passion. So whatever's authentic to you as an individual is an absolute asset into any artistic field. Yeah,
because you actually know about it's like a undiscovered or like underrated mega science.
Absolutely.
Or something, right? And you actually know a lot of the terms and all the different types.
Yes.
Yeah. And
that can be seen in the art.
Yes.
Someone that has the level of devotion for mushrooms versus just a casual interest.
Yeah.
And mushrooms isn't the only thing that I paint and draw these days, but it's just an example for how we can really offer something more in the art. And this is something I actually had to leave art university to discover because...
Which school did you go to?
I studied at Emily Carr for 3 semesters.
Okay.
And I left because I went there to learn how to paint.
That's in Vancouver, right?
It is in Vancouver, BC. I always said I wouldn't pursue post-secondary education when I was in school because of the contrarian, perhaps.
Yeah.
But eventually I decided to just apply to one, mostly because I wanted to live in BC. And I got in. And it was fantastic. For 3 semesters, it pushed me in ways that I wouldn't have gone. But then there was a limit. And I wanted to learn how to paint.
So what made you want to leave?
A lack of technical expertise.
Okay.
Really. A lot of it was academic. It was all about conceptual art, teaching us how to think.
Yeah, the cognitive labor and how to write something about it.
Yes, and there was a lot of that in the courses, and I was really trying to learn old master painting, and I didn't know where to go for that. And I've offended some people because I've said I've left university in order to learn. But it's true because it also gave me the space to then study things like mycology, which has become so crucial in my art. Go figure.
Yeah.
But in an artistic field like a university doesn't leave space for that.
Yeah.
So this is an example. It's just making those jumps.
Yeah. That's a really interesting thing because I as well did not go to art school, and I'm doing this full time for a long time, and you are a full-time artist as well. And so also there's numerous full-time artists that I know that did not go to art school. And I know that's a really common topic on like just in podcasts and YouTube in general now is art school. Do you need it? Do you not? And so of course, confession, we're both people that are on the side of that you don't. I think some may want it, and it can be a really great social experience, and you can learn a lot from it. Depends on your personality type.
Yeah.
But I was always of the mindset that if you're going to pursue something anyways, you don't really need the outside push. Like I feel personally that I critique myself and push myself enough as it is. I can drive myself, into the ground with like self-imposed pressure. I don't need deadlines from somebody else. It's just kind of like my life is what I'm doing all the time anyways with art. That's just like every day, all day, every week. So I don't need a reason to have a deadline. It's like, I'm going to be doing this. So I think this career is not for the faint of heart. It's like really that you have to be obsessed. And same with art. If somebody is taking drawing lessons, it's like there is no schedule of like how much should you draw. It's like you should have a sketchbook with you wherever you travel, and you should always be drawing because that's really what it takes to make it so natural that you can do it at a competitive level where you're actually able to draw something really cool in a relatively short amount of time.
I think that's a really good point, and it's my belief that everyone can really benefit from having an artistic practice for their own catharsis and processing the world. But if you can live without it, it probably shouldn't be a career. Because, and I really like Elizabeth Gilbert for this, she calls it the shit sandwich.
Okay.
If you can handle the shit sandwich, it's worth eating it. Because
what is this shit sandwich?
I'll elaborate.
How does the bread work?
Basically, the bread is what we love, and we love to paint.
Okay.
But inside the bread, there's all the things that come with managing a career.
Yeah.
So if you don't love it enough, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And so I believe everyone should have an art form, but to take it as a career is a big decision.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think anybody out there, like I teach drawing lessons in person to classes, and I kind of have two mindsets. If somebody's doing it as like a side thing or they're just interested in learning about it, fantastic. I want to take them from there. And I'm not going to say like, oh, you really need to practice a lot more, because maybe they're just doing it for fun, and that's okay. But if you're actually really serious about it, the way that I would teach that person is like a totally different thing. I'm going to be that much more critical. I want to actually reflect one quote that I really like. I think it's Lori Lipton. And she said something in a podcast. She was like, yeah, sometimes people approach me and they're like, I want to learn to draw just like you. I really love your drawings. I want to draw just like you. And then she said, okay, well, lock yourself in a room for 50 years and do nothing but draw. Then we'll talk, right? It's just this like quick fix. Our culture is just so based on like, I want the easy button. Just give me the hack so I can just learn how to do this thing really fast. Give me the trick. Is there just like a certain pencil you got to buy and like combination with a certain kind of paper and then you'll have it kind of thing? Just give me the steps 1 through 5 and then I'll do this. And it's like, nope, not even close.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned teaching.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about other income streams and how that fits into your life?
Yes.
So that would be, yeah.
Yeah. So I never wanted to, like, I actually didn't even think about teaching until I moved back from Toronto to Vancouver Island. And then I saw a poster in the recreation center, that actually made me have a double take. And I was like, is that a stock photo or is that actually from the place? And then I was like, oh yeah, that would be kind of neat. Maybe I could do like one class a week, because at that point, once I started to have enough demand for my work, I then encountered the problem that I didn't know that I would have yet until I had the problem, which is like, what happens if you capture your dream and you can do nothing but paint full time? And that problem was that you spend a lot of time by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like a in-between sort of like introvert, extrovert. So I do like to be social sometimes and get out and have an excuse to leave the house every day in some way or another. So that was my main pull into doing it, was that I would have something else just once a week. Like 1 3-hour class a week to me was like plenty. And so I started doing that. People kept signing up for courses. Eventually I did 2. Eventually I did 3 in one day, of different levels, drawing classes and oil painting classes. And I got to a point where I was doing 3 in one day because I didn't want to like divide my week up too much and then have like one day that was like half day. And so I was just like, I got to limit this. I really got to protect my time. And it got to be a little bit too much to teach 3 classes, like 3-hour classes in one day. That was crazy. So I'm going back to 2 now, but I never wanted to have that to be my main income stream. I wanted to have most of my income come from actually selling original art, because as that old, saying goes, like, those who can do and those who can't teach. And I never wanted to have that. I always try to make sure that, like, I'm doing this, I'm teaching because I enjoy it. And of course, who doesn't want extra money on the side as well? But I really do enjoy it. And I try to tell that to people, that, like, I'm like supporting myself with my art, and I'm taking all of that knowledge of how to do that and imparting that upon you, instead of, sometimes there's like YouTube channels where somebody's really good at making art videos, but I don't actually know if they actually supported themselves with their art first before they were really good at making videos and getting 1 million views like that. It's like fake it till you make it kind of thing sometimes, right? I'm not really exactly sure.
I think that's what makes your teaching more valuable, though, simultaneously, because it's very rare to find the teacher that is passionate and has the skills and is sociable and wants to share. So that's actually something that I was missing in university, where there's a lot of teachers that aren't predominantly studio painters. They're actually predominantly teachers. So I think that's beautiful. In my own career, I can reflect that. The same thing. I feel quite isolated if I'm just painting all the time.
Yeah.
And so a big part of, yes, it makes money for me, but a big part of what I love about showcasing at festivals, running workshops, running wellness weekends, the breathwork group sessions I would do, all of those really filled my tank of social and connection, and really feeling like I'm having a direct impact on people and uplifting their life. So there's just something so nourishing about that you then bring back to the studio, and it just makes everything so much better. And it also creates just a little bit less pressure on the art and a little bit more financial freedom. So it's just such a great formula if it's within someone's personality and it's genuine and it's providing value, to have these other avenues.
So the key word here is balance. It's like knowing how to fill your tank in one way and then come back to making it in the other way. Yeah.
It's kind of like a yin and yang situation as well.
Yeah, which I definitely believe in. Like, that's what teaching did for me, was to give me some balance. And I guess that's why I've been self-conscious about that, is trying to make it clear, whether it's online, if I'm promoting a workshop that I'm doing or something, is that I wanted to, and also into YouTube, I wanted to make that known that I didn't want to like fake it till I make it and then make it real. I wanted to actually have a successful career and approach getting into teaching and getting into YouTube once I actually had something to stand on. So I could stand in front of a class and be like, yeah, this works. I've done it. Like, same with YouTube. It's like, yes, I have been just living since 2012 off of my own artwork and creating a world that is completely all my own, doing everything the hard way, in the way that I feel intrigued by, in the deepest sense of the word. I wanted to do that all in the most legitimate way. Going to museums, feeling attached to the Northern European section of the Louvre. That part of the Louvre to me is like, it's not the biggest paintings in that museum, but there's something about them that's just like on this devotional level that just really makes me feel like this is something special. This is what the art world can bring to the rest of society and motivate the rest of society to be more conscientious about what you're doing, and full-heartedness, like putting everything into what you're doing and doing the best you possibly can, rather than our fast-paced, wasteful culture influencing the art, and the art just reflecting this dirty grittiness back to it.
Based on that, I'm really curious about this concept of subject matter and authentic voice. And what you're talking about is, this smaller wing of the museum lighting something up for you. And I really think also, in an era of expedited everything. It's what is actually true for us, and can we stand on that and not get so caught up in what other people are doing and what else has succeeded or gotten, you know, someone very wealthy. It's more important than ever with all the noise to really dive into what lights you up. Because anytime I've taken career work or commission work that doesn't light me up, I can do an okay painting, but that's never going to be a painting that is in any way significant and creates a ripple impact.
Yeah.
So it's really finding a sensitivity to what makes you light up and building on that. And I'm curious what you would say to authentic voice and finding your style and all of that.
Yeah, like when I first started, when I saw Bruegel, and I just felt like there's something there that I'm connecting with, and I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I knew that there was something there. And so over the past like 14 years, it's been going on feeling first, and then eventually sometimes realizing, oh yeah, that's why I like this. Like, for example, I have a sculpture of a guy carrying a bag of coal, and I didn't know why I wanted to buy that sculpture from a secondhand store many years ago, but I realized that it was because I didn't want to have somebody just for the sake of vanity in my paintings. And I relate so much to like Jean-François Millet, painters like that, where, you know, painting peasants, people doing things. And so it's like your philosophy is part of your art no matter what, whether you want it to be or not. And if I'm going to spend like 500 hours in front of a piece of wood putting pigment on it, it's like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it just because I think something is beautiful and I want to show beauty for its own sake and technique for its own sake? Art to me goes so much deeper than that. I got to have like a narrative that I can speak about. So, you know, as I'm sure you know, like when you have so much that goes into the work, you can just talk about it over and over again. There was one particular painting where it's called The Mood Collector, and I'll flash that up on the screen. It had this character that was collecting all of these different samples of sap, and each sample of sap had a different world within it. So there could have been like thousands of drips within this painting, but I was always kind of fascinated with the idea that every single human is kind of in their own field of expertise and interest within their own mind. They're kind of in their own world, in their own universe automatically. And so I wanted to put very opposite kinds of worlds within this one painting, and this character is collecting them in this big bowl and then mixing them together. And what happens when you get a whole bunch of different personality types in one room? It's such a funny thing to me, like sociology and psychology and just like social interaction of humans has always been endlessly fascinating to me before I started painting. Class, how all of that works. So I wanted to try to do something new, and I had this character that was like sitting, maybe just like kind of posing with this bowl, collecting all of these different samples of sap. And then I realized with that painting is like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want to paint somebody for the sake of vanity, like just this person that's looking good holding this thing posing. They've got to be doing something. So it's like stirring this bowl, you know, with this tattered sort of a garment on, to me was so much more interesting than that. So that's part of my example of like self-discovery. It's like just something feels like I've got to do it in a certain way. I don't want anyone else to influence me or tell me, or like a gallery that was like, you know, don't paint backgrounds because, you know, it's quicker if you just do this. I didn't want any of that. I had to do it my way. And eventually I found my audience because I think that they resonated with that. They could feel that with the work the same way that I feel in the Northern European section of a museum. There's something about that work that just resonates with me and just really makes it. So I'm sure that there's like a certain type of work that you saw as well, like certain artists that you saw, historical, that made you feel that way, that was like, I gotta make other people feel this way as well. Like, who were some of those artists for you?
Well, I'll start even before that, because I have a theory that everything that moves us has some sort of prelude in childhood. I really feel that there's, you know, something locked up in there, because we're all just uniquely, we have all these locks and keys that open certain things in us. Like mushrooms was one thing that just, it was like the everything went silent in the world, forever changed when I discovered mycology. And I feel that the paintings are like that too. So early on, again, with the video games and anime and all of that, there was this instant affinity to Japanese pop culture that is just innate in me. It's definitely there. And that's part of owning your authenticity is I could say that's, not highbrow and it's not intellectual and all these things. But I really think the more we own all those facets, the more we really bring forth something that is potent. But finally, then, the first piece that I saw that moved me was not a classical painting per se. It's a modern day painting, but it was Josephine Wall. And nowadays my taste is like, that's not the epitome for me, but seeing her painting was the first time I had a bit of like a world sort of went silent moment with a painting. Mm-hmm. And her paintings are very etheric fantasy worlds with a lot of color and light. Kinuko Craft is another one that I really appreciate in that sort of genre now. And then I finally started to discover the old masters as well. Mm-hmm. The painting that just did it for me is Sir Joseph Noel Paton's work, both of them representing the Shakespeare sagas. And for me, those are just the epitome because of this lush world created that are all beautifully orchestrated, all these little figures, but you can go in and keep finding these bizarre creatures they all have their own little personality and world. Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's something that anyone that clicks on a video where they see my artwork, or if they're already familiar with me or whatever, they're going to think about this need and this desire. Like, fantasy is a dirty word to the contemporary art world. Illustration is not as good as fine art or the contemporary art. And that's a big subject, because I think there's a lot of like minds out there that want to get a small brush and they want to paint very intricate little scenes. And if you go into a contemporary type of art institution with that desire, oftentimes I've heard so many horror stories of people going in to do that, and they're getting their wrist slapped basically by saying, no, you can't do that. Like, that's naive. That's not you're never going to make a living with that. You should go to the illustration school instead. And how do we do the kind of things that we do and actually make a living at it? I think that's the tough thing. And I faced that a lot when I was younger. So that's one thing I'd ask you about now, is like, with your type of work that takes 1 billion hours to get interest in it, it's like, obviously there's people that like it, but you have to be a renegade in a way. Like, you have to push those people aside that are saying like, this isn't fine art, this is like some other thing, right?
I think I came into it at a slight advantage in the sense that I wasn't exposed to the gallery world at all. So I, right from the get-go, was approaching a creative life creatively. So I was looking at the business model as just a blank canvas, so to say. Okay. And even today, I'm definitely acknowledging that I'm not pursuing galleries. I may never establish myself in that world. I may, but it is not what I'm aiming for. And every artist is different in what would serve them best. But for myself, I don't feel my efforts would be rewarded the best if I was absolutely trying to go the gallery route. Yeah. One of the points being my work takes very long. And so filling a whole show would take a long time. The subject matter and yeah, because the time that I put into each piece, I actually charge quite high and I'm okay to hold on to the originals. That's just been how I function for now. I do sell them at high prices and they move sometimes. But the way I've worked it is largely focusing on prints. And I've definitely had some people low-key insult me, calling me an illustrator and things like that. But
which shouldn't be an insult.
I know. I mean, what it just means that you can make technically detailed work.
Yeah, it's so funny.
That are less brushy.
Yeah.
But it's part of owning what's true for you. And for me, I'm okay with this unconventional path. And I feel that more and more artists nowadays are carving out unique paths. And certainly the internet has just opened the field wide in terms of what people can create.
Absolutely. Did you ever have an experience when you were at Emily Carr Art School where you were doing like really detailed kind of work and somebody or a professor maybe dissuaded you from that kind of thing?
Thankfully, no. I hear those stories quite often.
Oh, digging for dirt.
Thankfully,
trying to create some
no.
controversy.
Do you want dirt, though?
Yeah, let's get into some. There's got to be some dirt related to that in some way.
I've never told this story publicly. There was one class, and this was probably one of my favorite classes because it was heavily focused on painting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the critique at the end of the class. And, you know, this happens a lot in art school because all these personalities are bumping together. I had one piece that I deemed was incomplete because I set the bar high for myself, as you do. And I brought it in, and the teachers are like, no, this is complete. It's great. And they were thrilled. And then the next week, I naturally set the bar even higher for myself and didn't hit it again. And I got torn apart for what I brought in. And it actually became quite personal. It was interesting. I must have triggered something in one of the artists or one of the teachers. And he was just railing. And the whole class was silent. I'm just standing there and everyone's just crickets. And he's on. And it became very personal and directed at me. And I do think I handled it well in the end because I sort of understood what was happening in that moment. So when he was done, I just asked, what do you want me to take away from that? And it shocked him. He was just like instantly realized, oh, I was out of hand and this is personal. And I think he just maybe was insulted because I don't know. My personal thought is just he's a drawer as well. And maybe he thought I wasn't respecting the skill I was coming in with, or I don't know. But I think these moments could really have a negative impact, but it's important to not let one person drag you down.
Yeah, you have to have thick skin.
You just have to keep going. Yeah, everyone's you're always going to encounter somebody that just has a nick on their shoulder that they...
Totally. There was, maybe we can edit this out, but there was that other story you told about how you were learning woodworking.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, we don't have to edit it out. People can know that we talked before this video was recording. But you were learning woodworking or something, and something that was really intricate to you, and you were actually, in your mind, you were busting out of your current comfort zone and trying to really do something else. And for whatever reason, that art professor didn't actually think that was what they liked.
It's even juicier.
And then there's the part of like, you just had a bean or something.
Yeah.
So that's probably a common thing, that the difference between like the contemporary art universities at like the institution, it's all about the conceptual, how well can you write about it? Maybe you can tell that story really quickly.
This was the prelude to me leaving university.
Okay, so this is the good juice. This is where this episode starts.
This is where I left. I joined, again, I like to push myself. I like to push myself to expand out of my comfort zone. And there are so many examples of where I've done this in my life that have served me exponentially well, including transplanting to a different city. So good for personal growth. So I did it again in a small capacity by going into a sculpture class in university. Sculpture is just like untouched for me almost completely at that point, except for a bit of clay in my childhood. Mm-hmm. And I was all like, oh, I'm gonna, do some woodworking or something. And the class was actually just sharing us slide after slide of different sculptures, I should say, and then sending us off with a prompt. And we would just bring something in, and we were never taught any technical, again, lack of technical teaching in the class. And I was so sad. So naturally, I wanted to learn something. So I took wood and started to teach myself how to sculpt. Mm-hmm. Very, very crude and rudimentary. And I could only get so far in a week without any guidance. Mm-hmm. And so I brought in this little half-baked turtle. And I was torn to shreds because it's not a complete sculpture. And I thought I was actually really proud of myself because I found this to be a great marker point of self-education, torn to shreds. And then a following week, we were permitted to bring a found object sculpture, which is just, this book could be a found
like
object sculpture.
The
Anything.
Duchamp urinal.
The urinal.
Found object,
Ceci n'est pas une pipe. That's a little off topic of sculpture, but the pipe could be a sculpture.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was supposed to represent the word humble. I came in with a bean, an uncooked bean, and put it on my desk. Had this beautiful, eloquent story about why the bean represents humility, and got the best grade I got in that whole class, which actually infuriated me. People stopped me in the halls after to congratulate me on this amazing project.
Yeah.
And I was like silently dying inside that this is being rewarded.
Yeah.
And I see there's a time and place for this, but on the one hand, teaching myself skills to be penalized and that to be pedestalized just jaded me completely.
Yeah.
And that justified me leaving.
Yeah. So that's one of my passions that really drives my desire to make art and to keep going with this. And even with this channel, is like, I, in a way, kind of want to put myself out there as to like say, join our team,
Join
like
the mission.
join this. Well, really, like I've heard so many people talk about this. There's this big divide, in the art world, and there's like 5 different art worlds, apparently, according to a great YouTube video that I saw that was very informative. But people got to know about this and talk about this, and how the contemporary art institution setting, which is dominated by modern and then postmodern thought, is on its way out. I really feel that way. I think like the cat's out of the bag. People know that most of it is just totally garbage, and people want to see something. Like the regular general public wants to support art that they can't do themselves. And of course there's that whole thing about like, oh, actually it is really tough and my kid could paint that, and all the people that say like, oh, my kid could paint that are just like totally out to lunch. They haven't actually tried it. There's elements to that for sure. I'm not trying to put down the whole, like, everything that happened after 1900. Like that's not my, I'm not trying to do that. That's not my mission. There's a lot of incredibly valuable stuff about that, but I'm just trying to set the record straight about skill-based, my expertise being drawing and painting, that there's really this elitism that comes from the contemporary art world, that comes through the institutions, that makes people feel bad and feel stupid and naive. And it's now flipped on its head. And that's one thing that I want to do, is to say to the representatives of that world that you're not smarter than us. Like they think that they are, but it's honestly, it's all a front. It's like, I honestly feel that you could take some Joe Smith that's a plumber and also really knows a lot about sports, and find the amount of information that's in his mind about like who won the World Series in 1997 and what's the batting average of, like, there's just so much information in that person's mind also about plumbing, a really practical thing that people is great to know, that people need, and how much of that information is in that person's mind. And I know this because I grew up in a blue collar family. Like I've spoken to people that know nothing about art apparently, and they know a lot. There's no cognitive problems there. There's no cognitive deficiencies. I think that it's just that the people that are in the art world, that are in the contemporary art world, just specialize in that field of knowledge. It's not that they're, and so of course you specialize in speaking, you specialize in writing, and therefore you come across as more intelligent in the communicative public sense. But there's this elitism that I just want to tear to shreds. And that's one of the things that I want to keep doing with my own artwork as well, is taking the opportunity within the work to say like, I'm doing this because I know it rubs you the wrong way. I'm not making art that is naive to it. And one of my favorite quotes about that is Jacob Collins. If you search for podcast episodes with Jacob Collins, I don't remember honestly off the top of my head which episode it was, but there's not that many out there. It's like a full-length hour-and-a-half interview with Jacob Collins. And he said something about, I'm doing modern art I did modern art and I'm doing realism because I know what it's about. I could do it. I'm not doing it because I'm naive as to the reasons, and I'm just some country bumpkin who's like, oh, that's neat. Oh, you can make something look like a photograph. It's like, that's not why I'm doing it. It's like, I actually feel that what we're doing is, again, like superiority complex warning, disclaimer. It's really just trying to right the wrongs of the people that have tried to make anyone that's interested in realism to feel stupid and naive. That's what this is about. So we're doing it because I actually know that. And in a way that's like post-contemporary theory, which I'm not an expert on in many ways, but it's really about taking the ideas of postmodernism, what they were trying to correct, and pointing out and deconstructing all of the wrongs of the past and saying like, okay, that's great. We need to do that, but we also need to provide potential solutions. And I think that's what creating such time-consuming devotional kind of work is part of the statement.
It's devotion, right? It's the quality of devotion that we bring into life. And it's infectious too. I really feel that it actually is a lot more inspiring in that way. And you're making me think a little bit of the parable of legalese, for example. It's meant to create a divide between the people that understand law and don't.
Like the fictional language, like how you can't understand lawyer speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
okay.
The concepts of law are accessible to anyone.
Yes, it can be broken down and spoken about in a way that everyone can understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the language that divides, and I think it's the same in the art world. And that's why most people feel they don't understand art, is because there's an art ease.
Yes, it's a superiority complex.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I feel it is.
But this is part of the mission, I suppose, that I and you have fallen into, is to help anybody appreciate art. And there is that quality of devotion that is a little bit of the bridge. It's just, I see what it is to care about something so much, to pour the life force that you have, which is really all we have to give, into this thing to create beauty and wonder and everything else.
Yes, we shouldn't feel guilty
contained.
for wanting to wonder.
Yeah.
That's why I titled one of my paintings Will to Wonder, as a play on will to power. Just this, like, we shouldn't feel like there's actually an idea in the contemporary art world. I'll try to like remember who this person was, but it may have been Immanuel Kant, who was something about like people should not approach artwork with instant enthusiasm. It's like as soon as you see it, it's like, oh, I love that. It should be more contemplative. So it's like you walk into a room with a black turtleneck and like fancy shoes or something, and you're kind of like, and you're supposed to contemplate, and it's like, I don't even like that, but maybe if I think about it for a really long time and learn about it, then I'll start to like it. And I think it was this dichotomy between someone else, an earlier philosopher, may have been Aristotle, I'm not exactly sure, but it was just kind of like, this idea that yes, instant enthusiasm about what you're seeing and what you love is a good thing, and the other person's like, no, it's not. So there's a book in my shelf called The Intellectuals and the Masses by John Kerry, and I would recommend that book. And it really talks about that. It's this elitism of thinking like, the masses are really just stupid and they're not going to get this stuff anyways, so just completely disregard them. And it's only the people that are within this circle that know about art that really matter anyways. So it becomes like this insular sort of a thing where you're just appeasing your peers. And that's what I love about talking to regular people about art, because oftentimes they actually totally get it. I think one of the reasons that I've been able to sell my work is because at one point in my earlier career, I was trying to appease the like academic art world, which is then connected to the granting system. I wrote like 3 grants early in my career, and I felt so weird when I was doing it, because it's like, I have to lie. Like I have to kind of lie about my intentions in order to get a grant. And I could see all the previous winners were not doing stuff like me. So I was like, chances are I might not get this anyways. I'm putting all this time into trying to write this grant. It did make me better at writing at the time, so that's the one thing I got from it. But I was like, I would just rather spend my time making art and fund myself. Like that's what I was already able to do. So I was like, why am I spending all this time writing a grant when I could just be spending like 5 days making an artwork and then sell that and fund myself, right? It's like a separation between the market, like the idea that the market is the masses and their sort of base emotions, and that's what pop music and like junk food is really like. Anything that's to do with success in the retail market is the opposite of like a Marxist kind of view, is like, not to get into anything like that, but appeasing to my world, which is imaginative realism, things related to that. The thing I love about it is that you don't usually have like multi-million-dollar price tags on a big white canvas with a little mark in the top corner. And it's like, this is $100,000 because big sales pitch required. To me, it's like you can see the time. A lot of people that you maybe the contemporary art world people wouldn't consider to be like super knowledgeable about art, but there's just something about it they love. They have the money to buy something that's, $2,000, $5,000, $20,000. And they want to buy that. They want to support that. They can see the time. That art world to me is so much more connected to reality in terms of like, this is like an actual, the price is determined by the time and obviously like the effect of the overall end piece. So like the narrative and all the thought that goes into it.
For, kind of in that stream of thought as well. For me, it hasn't been uncommon for someone to say, this is the first art I've ever bought.
Okay, yeah.
So that's actually started to become a relatively common thing to hear. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's like own that. We can own that and be proud of that.
Yes.
And not feel like, oh, my collectors are all the most knowledgeable people in the world about this kind of stuff. Like, that's garbage. I think that has to go.
I think it's pretty impressive to be the first that someone's ever bought as well. Like, there's a different celebration to that. They're both, they both have their place. And I think there's, something innate that just connects with people with this type of art. And I've had the opportunity and privilege to travel all over the world to festivals predominantly where people get to take this in just in a life scenario. They're not going to a gallery out there that's just a gallery. They are wandering into a gallery that's amidst this little festival world, and they have an experience with it. And that's really potent in its own way, and it's very there's this human moment. And I've also had moments where people are in tears in front of the work because it's, again, there's something when you're creating something that's so personal to you, it has more opportunity to be personal to someone else. I think Carl Jung said that too. The more personal something is, the more universal it is. So there's that as well. And the
dichotomy between the personal and the universal, that's always something. I know that's one of the faux pas that would be touted against, is that if something is universal and these big ideas and all these grand things that they don't want to see in the work. And that's honestly at this point, I had a real problem with that earlier in my career. I couldn't do that. I was really trying to appease these like fictional critics in my mind that were all coming from a more postmodern perspective. And the granting system and these institutions and this kind of thing is like, there's got to be like an agenda that relates to what they want in order for your work to be successful to them. And then eventually it was like, no, I actually did really well at art fairs. Why do I feel like I have to like rise above that and go into this other world and appease those people when they're not really going to care about my stuff anyways, probably ever. So I'm making an intentional, putting up a flag post there saying like, I know what you know. I know why you might not like my work. I know exactly why you don't like my work. And I'm owning that. And I'm going to actually put more of that in my paintings. Aesthetic things that I just know are totally out of fashion right now. That's why I'm doing it intentionally. I have like a really like hot button inside my soul about that. Like, I'll talk about that till the cows come home because it just feels so, save that for another discussion sometime. But
it's so funny too.
What's that?
The greatest irony is the more you own that, at least this is what I'm finding now. I've owned that galleries aren't necessarily the way for me to go. I've owned that grants will be difficult for me to earn. And this year now I'm in a gallery show and got my first grant.
Oh, cool.
So I think the more we just own who we are and do the thing that's unusual in life, the more we will get all of the forms of success once we overcome those challenges and really show up with that. That may
also be indicative of times changing a bit too.
Exactly.
Because maybe 10 years ago you wouldn't have got that grant. Maybe. I just feel that way for myself because I did not see anything like I was doing in all of the previous winners when I was applying for grants around 2012, 2013. Well, a little bit more. I've seen a little. It changed a little bit, and I would have to say too that I feel like that is the future of current contemporary art world. Like if you look at the cutting edge galleries in New York that are showing some work, like paintings, large paintings, a lot of it's like, from what I've seen, is okay with figurative work in there. It's usually very immediate, expressive, like very, very loose brushwork, not even close to realism. But there's like there's more figures in there, and they're not supposed to look realistic. That's not the point. I do like some of that kind of work. I do find it quite inspiring, but it's telling to me that the contemporary art world has kind of opened up to that now. And I think the inevitable continual trend will be that it just keeps going into basically, I feel, what I've done, which is like you're just getting more and more realistic. And the reason they don't like that kind of work is because they feel that the more planning and realism that you require to make the composition, the more you're stamping out that immediate sort of connection to the real depth of human emotion that they want to have in a painting, where it's just like big messy brush marks, don't care. That's not the point. Paint is paint. Let it look like paint. To me, like, it's actually the hardest thing to do, to plan out a composition and get models, do photo shoots, learn about anatomy, all this kind of stuff, and still carry an emotional weight with a feeling of active gesture within the work, and combine those two worlds of like feeling and depth with the cognitive sort of like thought-provoking emotional experience as well. So I just like to, put it on a pedestal. I really honestly feel like imaginative realism. I don't like that title personally, but that kind of work, when it's done well, is actually something that requires the most dedication to do.
It's world building at its finest, and we admire that in literature. A lot of very big celebrated books these days are all about world building, so there is a trend towards that. And I think a great comparison is anybody that wants to pick up a pencil just to fully understand what that is draw something in front of you. Now try drawing anything from your mind, even like a horse or a figure from memory, and just instantly it becomes painfully obvious how little we have locked in here. Certain minds might be uniquely gifted at this photographic memory, but there is this really intense puzzle solving and problem solving thing that happens when you're world building, and lighting being one of the most complex. So for yourself, you're even building all these little maquettes, which I find really impressive. You're creating props to almost like a filmmaker, like create a scene. And some people may not even understand everything that goes into that creative process, but they do see it. They respect the final product, but to have this idea of how it all comes together. I
think, well, that's one of the critiques against it, because I always like to play devil's advocate in my own mind and be my own strongest critic. And I know that one of the criticisms against world building is that it's generally associated with fantasy, which is then illustrative maybe and commercial art. And the contemporary art world doesn't really have want to have anything to do with commercial art. And so that to me is really funny, because I think some of the most talent out there right now is in commercial art and in film and video games. People that are able to conceptualize like nobody's business, and a lot of the fine art that's out there is actually not necessarily the top talent in the world. It's people that are crazy enough to actually pursue painting.
Yeah, I think that is just a fascinating point, because if we are concerned with selling art and what sells, and we look around the world, we are seeing this draw towards world building, fantasy, video games, and things like that. So maybe there is room for that if you are an artist concerned with selling.
Yes, that's a perfect segue to another YouTube video that I'm not sure if it's going to go out before this one or after this one, but around the same time period, about a drawing called The World Builders. And in that one, this could potentially go into such a long tangent. I'll try to keep it short. But in that one, it actually is about what's really happening there from my perspective, is that it's not about, like, I never wanted to be associated with fantasy, because I didn't want to make anyone feel that I was illustrating someone else's idea. And that's one of the trends towards the world projecting mediocrity on people. It's like, oh, you're not smart enough to be a really skilled painter and also come up with your own ideas, that are actually thought-provoking and original. We got to leave that up to the experts in their own separate fields. It's like, no, I say BS to that completely. It's like, yes, I am building my own world from scratch, complete with all of my own symbols, which again, the contemporary art world doesn't like people making up their own symbols. Screw them. Hieronymus Bosch, Peter Bruegel, they got all those repeating symbols within their work that they're making from scratch. It's like, I'm trying as much as possible to create something new that you haven't already seen. Yeah, so in this drawing, I'll give it away. There's writing in the drawing that you wouldn't see unless you look at a close detail shot. But it says, we build not to imitate or to escape, but rather we build to understand. ... And I think that's like, I just really feel like in order to really understand something, you have to do it yourself. You have to construct it from scratch to learn why the problems are there that you didn't yet know you even existed. And oftentimes in an art school setting, they're teaching you what the problems will be and then telling you how to solve them before you even knew a genuine reason for having to solve those problems in a way. So that goes into Goodhart's law as well, which is a really fascinating thing. How I sold all of my work, I think, first and foremost, is just basically deciding to dedicate my entire life to this. So if you want to do that, like, get ready to say no 95% of the time when your friends are like, hey, you want to come out? No, I'm painting. I'm sorry. Like, that's like, I've dedicated everything to this. And so I don't have to put on anything when I'm talking about my work or whatever. It's just like, I've put so much into this that if I can't make it happen, then reality is just, there's something wrong with reality. It's like, that's the number one thing, I think. And then the business stuff and the math and how to do this and how to do that, I mostly learned along the way. And I don't know, like, I guess that's all I can say. Please comment if there's something that I missed that you want to know more about. I respond to all comments. I try to as much as possible. My channel is not that big yet, so I have time to respond to all comments usually. And anything else that you would like to say about that, maybe, like, that ties back into the, being able to sell?
Yeah. I mean, what you just said, I recently have met up with just spontaneously, kind of unexpected, reconnected with an old friend from my childhood. And she said, oh yeah, this was always going to be the case because Danielle would just leave social gatherings to go draw. So it really, there is that level of devotion that I think is just such a big part of it.
Yeah.
And ties in. And yeah, we have to wear a lot of hats, and those hats get learned along the way, but there has to be this nimbleness and this desire to learn. Honestly, I think it's just such a big key to pursuing any sort of unusual self-driven life, is a desire to learn and a desire to learn broadly, because there will be a lot of things in that shit sandwich that are not tied to what it takes to make a good painting, but how to run a successful life. And even keeping yourself healthy is one of those things.
Yes, big thing for sure. There's so many other potential little avenues that I could go down in thought. So I'll probably just leave it at that and remind people to leave comments, and also that we both have websites. So if I haven't already flashed them on the screen, I will put them up there now. Maybe this is not the first time in the video that you will have seen that. I have a Buy Me a Coffee, which you can go to and donate. And you can also tell me if you would like to see courses, and you can also sign up in some way to get courses once I actually make them. So it's like an email list thing, but I promise I do not send out spam email. I haven't even sent one to my actual full list for months now. So when I do have something that's actually worth sharing, that's the only time you will ever get an email. So I'll try to have information about that available. Of course, like and subscribe, all that stuff, which I never want to say. If there's anything else you'd also like to say about your links, and you can buy prints of yours online as well.
Absolutely,
support living artists.
Yeah, support living artists. We have prints, we have beautiful work, and we love to speak and teach. And yeah, I'm excited for your courses, just because it is obvious the level of craftsmanship that you put into your work. My website is daniellecaners.com. My last name is Caners. And yeah, there are prints there, a little bit about my work and my portfolio. And Instagram is the best way to see a little bit more behind the scenes and process and what I'm working on. Right now, I've been a little quiet because I'm working on 2 paintings that have been, one of them has been over a year, one of them has been over 7 years. So some big things are coming hopefully this year, both of them.
Excellent. And for me as well, Steve Chmilar, so SteveChmilar. That's on Instagram, so at Steve Chmilar, and my website, which I've already probably put up there. But yeah, just thanks for watching. If you've actually watched to this point, to the end, you are the reason that I've continued to make YouTube. I was really apprehensive about it in the beginning because I just want to spend my time making art. So this is for you, and please comment and stay tuned for more of the greatest stuff you've ever seen in your life.